Major foreign interference and corruption found with the Liberal Party of Canada. Trudeau's policies are allowing crime, corruption, and a lot of stuff to come in from other countries, and it is affecting us and our politicians. Not only that, it is making Canadians unsafe. The story that we are going to talk about today is absolutely nuts. What Trudeau says, and then, of course, what actually happened because of these lax policies. We also have an update on the housing market. Our current housing situation in Canada is not good, and based on this story, it looks like it could quite possibly be getting worse. So we need to cover that as well, because this is all related to the trickle-down policies, the things that are happening. We need to cover this stuff. Let's get into today's video.
Some of my neighbors here, you can look like their windows face directly into the construction zone, and all those balconies face in, and all they're staring at is a building under construction.
In the first quarter of this year, new condo sales in the GTHA have plummeted to levels not seen since the global financial crisis. That from the latest report from Urban Nation. That report goes on to paint a gloomy picture for pre-sales as well. On average, during the same time frame, pre-construction projects were only 50% pre-sold, down from 61% a year ago and 85% 2 years earlier.
Why that's a big deal is almost all new construction financing is based off of pre-sales. So that's why investors generally have been coming in handy based on the way that it's set up, is because, okay, a new tower goes up, we have 100 units, no problem. Pre-sell 70 units, we'll give you the financing. If that doesn't happen and this starts to crash because we're not getting that level of investment in the buildings, yes, of course, people will say like they have to lower their prices. But the fact is the builders just won't build, and we'll end up with less units. And these buildings aren't built instantly. This takes years. So to have this slowdown from the financing and that is not good.
That we're seeing more of this. Stalled projects sitting like this redevelopment on Russell Hill Road untouched for years. Maddie Simuteki is a professor of geography and planning at the University of Toronto and says the timing is not good for a market slump.
Toronto and other cities across Canada are depending on the construction of housing units to address housing affordability.
So why this is important for everybody across Canada too. Toronto is the largest city in Canada. So you got to think of it like a lake. You drop the pebble into the lake of Toronto, it ripples out from there. That's how like the building comes. That's how people buy. So, I mean, even Alberta and Saskatchewan and all these other places, like, yeah, it's not Ontario, but what happens is Toronto is where the pebble drops and things continue to spread. So people are leaving Toronto, leaving Ontario, going to Alberta. They're pushing up the prices there. And if they have less places to live in Ontario, eventually they're going to bleed into these other provinces. So that's why it is a big deal for all of you other provinces to pay attention to these trends. You may not think it's going to impact your price immediately, but it is interesting from a trend perspective, because also if the Toronto developers are struggling, then the developers in your provinces are going to be struggling as well.
Do we find developers by and large are pausing or stalling projects because it's not a good enough scenario for them, or because their business model is genuinely in jeopardy?
They can't start because the financial returns are not significant enough to make the project viable. Developers, we often hear, do have high return expectations, and that has been a point of frustration. And there's also a lot of risk that comes along with development. And now we're going to see who's able to weather out the stormy periods.
If you have a lot of stalled projects midway scattered throughout the city at a time when we're looking at how we're using land, is that a threat to how much we could build?
It's a big risk at the local level for communities, and we have seen stories recently of some stalled projects where literally it's a shell of a building with fencing around it. So these projects can sit stalled for some period of time, and that isn't good for communities.
I have a dog, so we're out a lot, and then having all the dirt and construction and stuff, for her pads, like paws walking through, just trying to get into stuff if it's laying around.
Borrowing costs in general.
We got to build for the dogs, for their pads.
Have kept a lot of would-be buyers on the sideline.
Meanwhile, the Toronto Real Estate Board says this latest slump still fits within historical trends, also noting the market for single-family detached and large luxury homes is ticking up.
Different segments of the market, people at different points in their life are impacted differently by, a higher interest rate environment.
He says while sticky inflation has made the future outlook murky, he's still hoping for some relief later this year.
Good stuff to keep an eye on, because we do know that this isn't going to impact us this month, but it will impact us in the future as these things take time. Remember, I am a real estate agent in Ontario. If you want to work with me or anybody in my team all the way across the country, reach out to me in the link below. We can hand select somebody for your area. Let's get into the next story, because this is what I think is crazy. We have Justin Trudeau talking about, oh, I'm innocent. The corruption shows that this didn't impact the election. And then he's leaving out the part where they said, yeah, we found clear corruption. But anyways, we'll get into it, because the videos that I have lined up after this Trudeau video are so nuts for him to go, yeah, we don't have the foreign interference. It's no big deal. And then we see what's actually happening from foreign interference. So let's get into this Trudeau video.
This government, since 2015, has put forward more measures than any previous government, which has never put forward measures to counter foreign interference.
No governments put measures forward to counter foreign interference? Sure.
We put forward a number of different bodies, including an elections oversight body that can say with confidence that the 2019 and 2021 elections were in fact decided by Canadians.
We put together a group who investigated us, and they said with confidence, we're innocent.
Despite ongoing foreign interference activities from various countries. And the work that the Commission is doing is very, very important in two ways, both to make sure that we are continuing to develop and improve our tools to counter the foreign interference by countries that want to either undermine our democracy or undermine democracy as a whole, but also reassure Canadians about the things that are being done to ensure that Canadian elections are decided by Canadians. So
he's leaving out the part where at the local level, there were actual people in certain ridings who were proven to have been impacted by foreign interference, which he was notified of, but he didn't read it. So he knew, well, the government knew that they were being interfered with, and that potentially some of these people who won at the local level was due to interference. Oh, but he didn't read it. It's no big deal. It had nothing to do with the election.
So I thank the Commissioner for the interim report, and we'll continue to work with the Commissioner and the Foreign Interference Inquiry over the coming months on the next phases of their work.
As democracy,
I love it because he says, like, yeah, we're going to keep drilling into this. We're going to keep looking into it. You know, Canadians are the ones voting us in, though. But, you know, foreign interference is happening, but it's not impacting anything. It's like, okay, let's see if it's not impacting anything, because these are the videos that I think in particular were nuts.
It has happened in the United States, in the United Kingdom, in Australia, and here in Canada. Security agencies tracking a global campaign believed to be orchestrated by the government of India against Sikh separatism, against attempts to create a separate Khalistani state based in the northwestern Indian province of the Punjab.
I think it is.
It's really nice of them to bring their, 1,000-year blood feud over to Canada and have their foreign flags and their state sponsors and all of those things in Canada. That's great.
An ongoing thing. The modus operandi of the Indian government under Modi has changed.
Former BC Premier and former federal cabinet minister Ujjal Dosanjh is speaking about Indian Prime Minister Narendra.
Former BC Premier. This involved in Indian politics. Surely there was no interference.
Modi, currently campaigning for re-election. Modi's political career has been built on a militant Hindu nationalism, which has often expressed itself by threatening minority Muslim and Sikh populations.
I'm a human rights activist too, in my old garb, before I actually came into electoral politics. So I despise that kind of an approach to international politics.
India's foreign ministry says it does not interfere in other countries' politics, but the ongoing public inquiry into foreign interference has evidence from Canada's security agencies that it does.
Oh, it does, Trudeau.
And the inquiry heard from witnesses about Indian interference in Canada.
Indian consulates act as a hub for espionage and foreign interference and transnational repression targeting the Sikh community. And they'll target anyone who's vocal.
And while the inquiry's focus is only on election interference, the Trudeau government says it is looking at measures to address pervasive interference by India and other countries such as China, Iran, and Russia.
It is a challenge. It's an evolving.
Yeah, they're just murdering people on Canadian soil. Surely they're not impacting the elections at all, even though we've found that they are impacting people. And in certain ridings, it was directly impacted. Granted, a lot of Chinese interference. But let's get into this video, which I found even more staggering when you hear some of these things being discussed and how they're handled. Wild.
It was news months in the making. 3 arrests of Indian nationals nearly a year after Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar was killed on Canadian soil. Justin Trudeau now keen to reassure the country's Sikh community.
Canada is a rule of law country with a strong and independent justice system.
But
do you guys feel like that's the case?
Investigators had little to say on the alleged involvement of the Indian government. Even if sources tell CBC News, police believe that to be true.
It's in all of the reports. CSIS has said it. I just watched another video of this CSIS employee going like, yeah, they're very involved. They've got cells all over, like the espionage cells, and they're paying attention to this, and they're involved. It's like, no, we don't know.
We are investigating if there are any ties to the government of India.
An allegation Indian officials have angrily denied from the get-go, and again this weekend. India's foreign minister says he doesn't know much about the men arrested or any gang affiliations, but he blames Canada for what India has long accused the country of doing, fostering a safe space for those that Indian officials consider violent extremists.
A number of people with organized crime links from Punjab have been made welcome in Canada. We have been telling Canada, saying, look, these are wanted criminals from India.
Even with India's strong denials that it...
They've known this for a while. Like, this is an ongoing thing. Like, these developments are recent, but, like, this has been going on for years.
...orchestrated any assassination plot. On the campaign trail this election, the Prime Minister has been flexing his muscles and embracing the image of a nationalist strongman, protecting his nation at all costs. Against perceived enemies. This is a new India, he says, that will come into your home and kill you. For many...
What? What? What did he just say? Let's just play that back for the people at home who didn't hear it, okay?
That will come into your home and kill you. For many in Canada's Sikh diaspora, statements like that one are chilling, as those close to Hardeep Singh Nijjar pray for more evidence to be revealed by law enforcement.
Surely, that has nothing to do with interference on our elections or any of those things. That level of statement, surely that has no impact on us. Remember, I am a real estate agent in London, Ontario. If you do want to work with me or my team all the way across Canada, reach out to me in the link below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your day.